We are in the middle of going through this list that I had up there. Okay? And this list is how you think through anything that is something that's factorable. Okay? So the first one is to put in order. We're kind of not doing that until the end today. Okay? And then you should always check to see a greatest common factor in all four of them. Or, I'm sorry, in all the terms. You should always check that. So now we're on to step 3 here. So this is just adding to that list from yesterday. So we've already, in the process, we've already taken out the greatest common factor. And now you're going to count terms. And so how do you know when a term starts and stops again? In addition or subtraction. So if you have 4 terms, right after you count them up, then you're going to try to group the first 2 terms together and group the last 2 terms together. And the reason you're doing this is you're trying to create 2 greatest common factor problems. Because we just want to do what we were doing before. So that if you're going to follow what I'm trying to get you guys to do, you're just going to do like a little bit more than we did the day before. Okay? So, right, the whole point is you're making 2 greatest common factor problems. Okay? Probably you're going to get all this stuff done before you leave. You might not quite get it all done, but you'll get most of these done before we leave. And we're looking at just 31 to 48. And I'm just going to do a handful of them so that you can see what this means. Okay? So again, when I do a list, it's just like to remember, hey, this is what you're supposed to be thinking right now. Okay? So we're just and it's not quite in the place that you're normally going to start with. This is kind of like it's partially done, and that's why I like using this group of problems. Okay, so if we're looking at that, would it be okay to say that there are only 2 terms up there? If you're okay with that, what's the first term?
AB minus 5.
Yeah, A, B minus 5, right? This thing right here is the first term. Because then here's the plus. The second term, C, B minus 5?
Yeah.
Okay, so then all we know right now is greatest common factor. So if you're okay with saying that those are 2 terms, what's the greatest common factor in those 2 terms? Or what is this saying in both terms?
5.
A little bit more.
B minus 5.
B minus 5, right? The whole B minus 5. So we're going to take, just like a greatest common factor, we're going to take the B minus 5 out front. What was left over from the first term? A. What's left over from the next term?
C.
Okay, then you're going to take that plus sign with it. Is that okay? So like this form right here where you got 2 sets of parentheses, most of your factoring will look like that at the end. Sometimes you'll have something out front that you had to do with a greatest common factor, but almost always you're going to have this situation. Or a lot of the times anyway. Is that okay? All right, so pick either 33 or 34.
33. I have a question.
Yep.
So Since you're grouping them, and you have 4, would it be x squared or would it just be x?
Okay, so really we're not really starting that grouping until we get down to 37.
Alright.
So basically what you guys are looking at right now
Okay.
is it's kind of like 37 on, but we've already done something to it. Okay, so this is like, and this is why I like using these problems, because it kind of like walks you through one thing at a time. So what we're gonna do, and not necessarily this one, but like that one that we just did,
Yeah.
you're gonna make it look like that first. Okay, so yeah, so this is kind of like halfway through the step. That's a good question though. Okay, so what I would say is this is the exact same problem that we just did. So we got 2 terms, is that okay? And what's the first term then? The whole thing, but everything you guys just said. The first term is x plus 7, x minus 1, because here's your plus sign, right?
Yeah.
Okay? And so then the next term is x plus 7, x minus 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So what's the same in both?
X plus 7.
So then we're going to factor that out front.
How would you combine like terms?
We will here in a second, yeah, but I'm not gonna do it right away. I'm gonna do it like next step. But yes, because what's left over from the first term,
X plus, or x minus 1.
right? Again, we're gonna take this plus. What's left over from the second term?
X minus 2. X minus 2.
You should always try to simplify. And like he was saying, you know, we can combine like terms in that other one, so it's still x plus 7. So then what's left over, or like combining like terms, what happens there?
X squared. Negative 3.
Is that okay? No, it's not x squared. I was thinking of something else. Stop that. What is it? It's not x squared.
You don't multiply.
Yeah, we're not multiplying. What is it? Sorry. 2x. I saw Grace gave me the, it doesn't look right. Look. I was thinking of something else when I did it. All right, is that okay? So again, if you guys can do these, this is going to be pretty simple. We got to do one more like this, either 35 or 36.
36.
All right, do we recognize the 2 terms?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have the same thing in both of the terms? No. But they look kind of close, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and in fact, they're so close, right, that the only thing that's different is the signs, right? This one has a positive x, and now it's a negative x. This has a negative 6, now it's a positive 6. You're not allowed to multiply, we can only factor. But what's nice is that it's the same numbers, just opposite signs.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is factor out a negative, like we did in that last group of problems. Because when you factor out a negative, all the signs switch. So don't multiply, you can't do that. But we can factor all the time. So then I'm always going to do it to the second one. You don't have to. It's not wrong to do it to the first one. It's just traditional to do it to the second one. So I'm going to leave this one alone for right now. And now I'm going to slowly do this so that you can see kind of what's going on when I do it, okay? So you don't have to go through all these steps. You got to understand what you're doing. So really, I'm going to take out a negative 1. And then again, that just switches all the signs. Does that make sense?
So would that make that the 2 1 now?
We're multiplying. So then what does it make it?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Okay, and again, you can always check, right? Things better be the same. The line above better be the same as the line that you just wrote. And it's easy to check. If I distribute -1, do I get a +6?
Yeah.
Right? If I distribute the -1, do I get a -x?
Yeah.
All right, so everything's fine. We're still good. Now, you can add in any order you want. So, yeah, so then really I'm going to write it like this. Is that okay? Does that make sense that those are the same?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we got a common factor of what?
X minus 6.
What's left over from the first one?
5x squared. 5x squared minus 2.
All right, so two things. You don't have to go through.
Is it always 1 that you're going to take out?
No. So again, this is kind of like what he was asking a second ago. This is just going to be, eventually, what we're going to do starting tomorrow is this will be part of the process, okay? And so, in the long run, it could be -1, but it could be -5, it could be negative whatever, okay?
Right.
For these today, probably just a negative when you do that, okay? So now, you don't have to go through all these steps. This is like why it works. You can just look at this, recognize that the signs are different, and you can say, oh, I'm just going to change this sign to negative, and that switches these two signs here. Okay? Or you could even go, okay, I'm just going to change this one to negative and go all the way and rearrange it all the way down. But this stuff in here is like just like what is actually happening when you're doing that. Is that all right? Right. And the other thing I want to point out, or do we understand that these two things are the exact same? And so when you're checking your answers, they may have it written one way, you may have it written the other, but as long as your factors are the same, it doesn't matter what order they come in. Fair enough? All right, so now we're going to jump down to 37 here. And so now we're going to see the whole thing, and this is like the step that we just put on the notes. We're going to use everything we can here. And it's going to start looking exactly like what we just saw. All right, so we're going to go through it like I just gave you a problem. All right, you're going to factor this thing. So the order is kind of like, the order I think it looks fine. Is there a greatest common factor in all 4 terms? No. Okay. So now you count up your terms. We got 4 of them. And so then what did we say we should do when there's 4 of them?
I'll group them.
Group them.
Group the first 2 and group the last 2.
All right, so I kind of like grouping them by just underlining. Okay? There's a reason for that you guys don't need to know, but it just makes most sense to most people. Okay? So what you just did was create 2 separate problems. That's the way you want to look at this. So the first problem that we're going to look at is the AC plus AD. Is there a greatest common factor there? A. What's left over?
C, D, D.
Okay, so C plus D.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going to drop this sign down, plus. Is there a greatest common factor between the next 2 terms?
B.
B, what's left over?
C plus C.
Now it looks like what we just did. This is what I was trying to say, Eli, a second ago. So now, we have these 2 terms. Right, we went to 4, now we got 2 terms. What's the greatest common factor in
C plus D.
C plus D?
And then A plus D.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
That was way more complicated than it was.
Yeah, it's not complicated. Yeah. You guys do all these. If you guys do all the problems I tell you, you guys will be factoring like this. It won't be any big deal to you. Okay. You actually might like it. I won't tell anyone if you do. Right? Like I don't want to ruin your all's reputation. Like, like me over there. Like, if I start telling people, hey, she actually enjoyed doing that, and they'll be like, wait a minute, what? She's out of the group.
Yeah. As Please don't ruin that.
Don't worry.
Saying that we like the math.
Don't worry, it's not being recorded or anything.
See, Emil?
See, yeah, you're not part, sorry, man.
Never hit.
Actually, like, I will just do this disclaimer, none of the names I'm using are real names. Yeah. No one watches these anyway, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so is this okay so far? Should we do, one more? Or does that feel good? Try 47. I'm not gonna try, I'm gonna do it, how about that?
I was gonna say 45, but okay.
He said 47 first. We'll take a look at everything. Right, because you guys are gonna be able to get most of the stuff done before you go anywhere. And I'd like to get a little bit further, but that's okay. Yeah, you're going up to 48. Because the next thing is the big deal and we gotta make sure we know. Okay? So before we go anywhere, when you do the big time factoring thing that we're gonna start tomorrow, you're gonna see this all the time. And what I mean by this is you see those two terms in the middle are like terms. Okay? You're gonna see that all the time. So this is like, we're almost there kind of thing. But we're gonna treat it the same way. We got 4 terms, so what do we do? Group them. So there's a group.
Same thing.
Group, that's okay, well, it's being recorded, I have to do it so that, like, the influencees know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Did I say that word right? Is that it, right? I think so. Alright, what comes out of that first one?
Y.
More. Y squared, more. 2y squared, okay? So, here's the thing about this process that we're working through. When you get to this step, you gotta take out the greatest common factor, or it's not gonna work for you. So, 2y squared. What's left over?
Y squared plus 3.
Plus, we just drop that down.
Yeah.
What comes out of that next group? What's left over?
Y squared plus 3.
2 terms, what's the greatest common factor? Y squared plus 3. What's left over?
2y squared plus 5.
You guys are going to be factoring before you know it. We're going to be factoring before the weekend.
Can we do another one?
Sure, I'll do one more.
46.
46, yeah, this is a good one to do. So let's do this one. This also has a lot going on. And then you guys are going to do the rest. So I've been factoring for 35 years.
Are we still grouping?
Same.
Hmm?
Who would just do y? No, because you got negatives.
All right, so this is one that we should go through the whole steps that we came up with. So the first step is what? No. Let's put this in descending order. So what needs switched around? Yeah, y and y squared. Okay, so then make sure you carry the sign as with it. Okay, so that was putting it in descending order. The next step was what? All right, is there a greatest common factor? A y. Yeah, so let's take that out. So then what's left over?
Y cubed. Then y squared. Then y.
-1, that's important, right? We have 4 terms, we better have 4 terms left over. Okay? So if you are factoring and you ever say nothing, like nothing is left over, you mean there's a 1 left over. Or if you're factoring and you say nothing comes out of it, a 1 still can come out of it. Okay? All right, so now here's something very important. We are done with this y, but it has to be part of your answer. And if it's not part of your answer, then you haven't done it correctly. Because remember, your answer needs to be able to be foiled back to the original problem. But we don't need it anymore, okay? I like to carry it around. Some people don't, because I don't want to forget about it. So you need to do something so that you don't forget about it. And what I've told people before is just like do like something like this, like it needs to be part of your answer, you know, bring it down there so it doesn't, so you don't lose it, okay?
So you're backing out that then?
So now we're just in the inside and we're going to say, oh, look, there's 4 terms. What do we do with 4 terms? We group them. Okay, so again, I'm going to write down y every time. You may not want to because it kind of gets a little sloppy. And I changed my parentheses to brackets because my eyes don't like looking at multiple parentheses, but you do what feels good, okay?
The first one would be y squared,
So then we can take a y squared out, what's left over there,
y.
and
And
minus 1, plus, right, that plus sign, what comes out of the next two? 1, right? If you say nothing, you mean 1, okay? So then 1, and so then what's left over?
y minus 1.
So again, we're just on the inside. We're not looking at that y on the outside, but it better be in your answer.
So then it would be y minus 1 parentheses y squared plus 1.
And then that y that we took out at the beginning. All right, so all 3 of these better be part of your answer. Okay?